Shall I not use this or shall I use this? Okay, right. We're back on track now. Thank you. Right, we looked at some check names. I didn't. Okay, let's look at a few checks then. This is a fraudulent check, a real-life fraudulent check. This check was made payable to the South African tax people for a tax liability. In the post room, the receiving room in the tax authority, there was a syndicate operating, a member of a syndicate. He steals the checks for 1 million. The currency doesn't matter, it could be anything. He changes the tax authority to Gruntel SA Pty Limited, and he puts stars across what he crossed out. He's changed the name on the check. He then deposits this into a Gruntel bank account and gets away with $1 million. Easily. Of course, he knows the bank reconciliation won't be done till the end of the month. So he does this theft issue, this fraud issue, on the 1st or 2nd of the month. He knows he's got 29 days to get away with it. How does he know the bank reconciliation won't be done till the end of the month? Perhaps he works in the accounting department. Perhaps he's a CFO. 85% of fraudsters are inside. Perhaps he's not a CFO, I'm sorry. Let's look at another check. This check was made payable to JCI Limited for $755,000. That is the real check. It goes through the bank as this. $755,000. It's got the same account number, but the name on the check is changed. In fact, it's not the same check. It's a totally different check. The fraudster steals a check, destroys it, and makes another one, totally different, and puts that through the system. How does he get it through the banking system? Perhaps he's got a friend, syndicate friend in the bank. You see how it's all linked? Let's see if we've got another check to look at. Again, this check was made payable to Southern Metropolitan Local Council for $1,747. It suddenly becomes $41,747. Can you see this? And it's made payable to another account that the fraudsters open. Very cleverly done. Can you see how they made the change? They black out the whole of the writing. They put a black block over it and then type in white on the top. You can see here this was spotted by the bank, fraudulently negotiated. Another check, quickly, BP. For $3,890 becomes $33,890. And it changes from BP. Can you see how BP is written there? They scratch it out with a needle. They scratch the writing out with a needle, and then they put lots of stars on it to cover it up. Different techniques of the fraudster. This is a secure check. It's made with soft paper that will show any tampering. It's different colours. It's got lots of security features on it. Right, a couple of minutes now on identity theft, because it links in with many frauds. The fraudsters change their identity. They cannot be seen as themselves. A few years ago, Coopers and Lybrand, these two people stole a check from Coopers and Lybrand for $135,000. Before it was PwC, Coopers and Lybrand. They go home and they see this check and they think, right, $135,000, how can we put this in a bank? So they go to a street corner. And there are street corners in many cities. This was in Johannesburg, where they can buy on this street corner a passport or ID document for a very small amount of money, $50 possibly, $100 maximum. They buy the passports or ID documents of dead people. The numbers are valid. How can they buy passports of dead people? Because somebody in the Department of Home Affairs is a syndicate member. Yeah, they buy them. So they've got a valid ID number. All they need is a name and a photograph. They pay $50, they give a name, they give a photograph. In 2 minutes, they've got passports. Very easy. They go to the bank. They say, Mr. Bank Manager, please can we open a joint account? The bank manager says, can I have your passports, please? Joint account, Anthony Coopers, Agnes Lybrand. These are the names they made up. The bank account is opened. Know your client. And then the gentleman pulls a check out of his pocket made payable to Coopers and Lybrand for $135,000 and says, please can I put this in as my first deposit? It worked. This is how identity theft marries with stealing checks. We have some more identity theft here. This lady is the same lady. She's got 4 ID documents, 4 passports. She steals a different payroll check every month. She works in a payroll department. A real life story again. In the first month, she steals a check made payable to this person, second month to that person, then that person. And she simply goes and buys a different ID document. How did she use the check? She went to the stores. She went to the big stores. And she said, I've just been paid. Here's my pay slip. They do this in some countries. Can I use my paycheck to buy the groceries? And they do this. I don't know whether they do this in Pakistan. And the store accepts the check, accepts the ID. She walks away with her baskets of groceries and cash change. And then the check bounces because it's been stolen. They put a notice up. This lady stealing checks, be careful. But next month she used a different store, a different check, different name. ID theft. Fraudsters, very clever people. Very clever, but quite often they use the most simplistic ways of stealing. How did Kublai Khan and his Mongols break through in the impenetrable Great Wall of China? This wall, have you seen the Chinese wall? It's almost as wide as this room and as high. How did Kublai Khan break through the Great Wall of China? Think like a fraudster. So you're thinking about ladders, you're thinking about tunnels. Hot air balloons is a good one. Think like a fraudster. It's actually very easy. He bribed the gatekeeper. That's exactly what the fraudster's doing. He doesn't get complex. Well, he does, but generally speaking, the first port of call is the easy things. He bribes the gatekeeper. What's 1 and 1? 11. You need to go back to school. What's 1 and 1 to a fraudster? 1 and 1 is not 2. It might be 11. 1 and 1 to a fraudster is whatever he wants it to be. I think you're all familiar with Excel. Excel, 1 and 1 is 2. 1 and 1 is 1. 1 and 1 is 0. Remember, the fraudster is trying to hide in the books what he's stolen from you. He uses Excel to do this. In Excel, you can format a number to text. The fraudster can format a number to text. It will not add it up. He can also, if you play around with Excel when you get home this evening, you'll see this. You can format a -1 without brackets. So 1 minus 1 is 0. He can manipulate the numbers in Excel, in any software, without going into the program. It's on the taskbar at the top. It's very easy to do. Remember what he's trying to do? He's stolen a check for 100,000. If he can keep it in the list of unpresented checks for months and months, he can get away with it, or so he thinks. So he manipulates the numbers. 1 and 1 is not always 2. Key catch. Right, this is where we are. For some reason, yours skips those 6 or 7 slides. Key catch, interesting device. It's the size of a cigarette stub. There it is in line. It's about 1 inch long. If I suspect one of my people in my office is doing something they shouldn't be doing, industrial espionage, they're emailing my price list to competitors, they're spending all day on the internet, they're emailing inappropriate things. I come in the morning at 6 o'clock before they get in, and I put this on their computer at the back. And when they leave at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock, I can then take it back, put it on my machine, and it will scroll down my screen, everything that they've done in that day. Very interesting tool, key catch. But very dangerous, because if you think about it, he can do the same to you as a boss. So you need to be very careful. The fraud triangle. The fraud triangle, to those of us in the business, I'm sure many of you have seen this before, is the basis of fraud risk assessment. And as I said before, the biggest risk is not managing risk. If you're looking at the fraud triangle, it can help you. There are 3 corners to a triangle. If there is pressure surrounding a situation or a person, it increases risk of fraud. Pressure is the school fees need paying. The wife needs treatment in hospital. They don't have the money. There is pressure. Rationalization is a thought process. If the individual comes to your meetings and is late,